Hi, everybody. This is Matthew Poes with Poes Acoustics. I'm not sitting centered. Not that it matters, but Steve-O, 1980, and then it's 19801. I was going to say 1981, but that's not right. So 19801, who gave, looks like it's €49.99. Fantastic content as always. Please, can you do a video for all of us? Really small room, guys. My room is 3 meters by 5 meters. And for those that don't know, that's probably about 10 by 17, I think, feet, something like that. Can you go over the considerations of surround speakers so close with two people sitting side by side and the room treatment needed to combat this? If I go the normal route of having the screen on the short wall, or, and I'm really considering this, setting up to have the screen on the long wall, what treatment speaker position considerations, along with any pitfalls laying out in the orientation poses? I see the benefits as 2 to 3 people sitting together in one long row. Mains being around 2 meters away and surround speakers being 1.5 to 2 meters away in this small space in this orientation. So you can see if you've got a 5 meter long room, you can't really, it'd be pretty hard for you to have the speakers be much more than 2 meters away without making the other speakers much closer. You might go, I might say actually go closer to 2.5 meters. So I would push back something like around 0.68 or so as a proportion back from the front speakers is where you ideally might want your rear seats. That's kind of a good one. There's different ratios we use depending on the size of the room. And in smaller rooms, we sometimes do need to go closer rather than farther back. But there's some acoustic advantages to being a little bit farther away, even in these small rooms. So here's what I would say. In a room that small, you would be very hard-pressed to be able to get good sound out of a system relying solely on absorption or doing nothing at all. Because the room is so small, it's going to sound small. Now, I shouldn't say you're going to be hard-pressed to get good sound. You could probably get pretty good sound, but it would be more difficult. If all we care about is 2 people, I actually don't think that there's an issue doing it the long way with the screen on the narrower portion of the wall. One of the problems you're going to have if you go with the 3 meter dimension being the depth of the room and the 5 meter dimension being the width of the room is that because it's so shallow, as I said, it's about 10 feet or so, you're going to sit 2 meters maybe at most from the speakers, maybe less. Now, you're going to have a much smaller screen. I mean, remember, regardless of the number of seats, your viewing angle should be kind of the same. So 50 to 60 degrees would be optimal. And if you think about what a 50 to 60 degree viewing angle is going to look like when you are sitting that close to the screen, it's not going to be like wall to wall. Whereas if you do it the other way, it probably would be about wall to wall to do it right. So you're going to have all this empty space on the sides. Not a problem. You can decorate it. It's not the end of the world. But, the speakers are actually going to be relatively close together. And then you're going to sit pretty close to it. And your width relative to the screen is actually going to be quite wide. Whereas if you push yourself back, your width, meaning all of the 3 seats relative to the width of the screen, isn't going to be quite as bad. The screen's going to get bigger. And because you're sitting farther back. So as I said, I would push back. I think in the scenario where you're 3 meters, you're 1.5, 2 meters from the speakers. If you're going the other way around, you're able to get to 2.5 meters. You could probably even get to 3 meters from the speakers. That would work. And that allows you to go to a bigger screen. And then those other seats next to you actually work better. There's a couple things you can do to help improve the seat-to-seat consistency and experience. Get rid of the armrest, so use a couch instead, even if it's a recliner style one. It pushes people together. Go a little bit narrower seat cushions, unless you really need to have that wider width. That pushes you guys closer together. I don't like wide rooms, to be honest with you, for exactly this reason. It pushes you. You probably would end up having to have that couch practically on the back wall, and that's not a great idea. So I would stick with the long way myself. I think that would be better. You just do the 1 row of seats, obviously. I think you probably could fit 3 in there. It's going to be tight, but I think it could be done. You just want to make sure that you're looking at something that's like in the 70 to 80 inch range for width. I need to say this better, but like 2 meters to a little bit over 2 meters in width so that you want close to a meter I'd say about 0.75 meters minimum, is like a kind of hallway, alleyway area, if you will, between the couch and the sidewall on at least one side. If you don't need to get around the couch and you don't mind having it such that the couch can't be gotten around, if you will, center the couch, then you're not going to get quite as much width between them. But that would be better in terms of all the seats having better experience. But if you need to be able to get around the couch for some reason, then you're going to want to push the couch basically practically up against the sidewall. And then obviously, like if I push this up against the wall here, this seat, you're seeing it to the left, but it's actually to the right. This seat over here is going to have a much worse experience than this seat and this seat. But these two seats would have a pretty good experience. So you have to play around with that. If you don't need to get around it, like I said, that's better. You can center the couch. I'd stick with the long way. I think that's going to be better. And then you're just going to want to, I would go wide on the viewing angle if you can. So it's hard for me without doing the calculations to be able to tell you exactly what that would look like. But what I would do is figure out, can I go wall to wall on the screen? And if I can go wall to wall on the screen, keep in mind, wall to wall doesn't necessarily mean drywall to drywall or concrete to concrete. Wall to wall could actually be a narrower spacing than that because you're going to have some acoustic treatments. But this room is so small, we're probably going to want to go on the lower profile side. So you're going to give up as little depth as possible. How are you going to do that? I would use very high performance in-wall speakers or low profile on-wall speakers. I would want something that's no more than 9 or 10 inches deep. Again, I got to do this as meters. 250. No, I'm saying that wrong. What would it be? 2,500 millimeters. 2,500 millimeters, I think, would be like the deepest I'd want to go with the speakers if possible. The subwoofers are going to be really tricky. There aren't really a lot of good high-performance subwoofers that are shallow. In the US, we have a couple of companies. RBH is one because I worked with them on this product that make some that are about 2,500 millimeters. They're actually less than that. They're like 2,300 millimeters, I think, something like that deep. And they have about the output of an 18-inch woofer. There are some other products coming on the market in the future that are going to be very high output, but shallow depth, and that's good. But like that's what I'd look for, is shallow depth stuff to avoid losing space. In-wall speakers, shallow depth subwoofers. That way, when you build your baffle wall in the front, you can keep it as shallow as possible. In theory, like there's a Perlisten subwoofer coming out that's in wall. I think it fits in a 6-inch depth wall, maybe, something like that. You could make this 6 inches deep and that's it. And you would lose a little bit more with the screen, but maybe it's 8 inches deep or something like that. So 6 inches is what is that? So that would be about 150 millimeters, right? Yeah, about 150 millimeters or so is going to get you something that, if you could get away with that, gets you really high performance still. And you could get away with probably less than that on the back wall. And I think 50 to 75 millimeters on the sidewall is doable if you use the right product. So in the sidewall, you're going to want to use absorbers that have higher density and have good performance at lower depths. You could also use hybrid materials. There are a couple companies that make products that are typically they're closer to 75 millimeters, but they're layered. And you actually get some bass absorption. You get some absorption down below, let's say 150 hertz that's significant, whereas with 50 millimeter, even like I have 8-pound 50 millimeter insulation in a lot of my panels. That gives you pretty good absorption down to a couple hundred hertz. And there's actually still absorption down to 100 hertz. It's just not a ton. And with some of these hybrid materials, you can actually get to a point where you lose some absorption in the mids and highs, but you actually gain a good octave or more of absorption in the bass range. And so you would get a good amount higher coefficient at 100 hertz, for instance, or 150 hertz than you would get from the straight material alone. So that's an option. And then for diffusers, you guys know I've been recommending these shallow, they're roughly 50 millimeter deep, good panel diffusers from Real Acoustics because they are so effective and their design specifically allows you to sit very close to them. You can be about 100 to 150 millimeters from them. I think you can be less than that. You can definitely be 150 millimeters, but I think you could be closer to 100 or less millimeters from the surface of it and still be in the far field phase mixed region of the diffuser. Meaning the people that are sitting in these seats here are still going to be getting a good experience from those diffusers. And in small rooms like that, I think that I would use a pretty good amount of diffusion. on the sidewalls, the ceiling, and the back of the room, because it would help that room not feel and sound so small. In many ways, what's making this room tough is the length is not terrible. It's pretty narrow. So I think that having some diffusion would really help. So a lot of people in these smaller spaces, and I've done smaller than this, actually. I've done rooms that were more like 2.5 by 4 meters and gotten pretty good results. So if you use diffusion correctly in those spaces, you can get pretty good performance. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. Thank you. That was a very generous donation, by the way. I really appreciate that. And keep subscribing to the channel, everybody. My subscriber numbers have been going up every month, and it's really helping my channel to do well. This is really valuable for helping me to be able to provide you guys with this kind of information for free. I've had some of you have asked about things like doing paid trainings. I mean, I'll just mention my training rate for a couple of day training, it would be $6,000 to $10,000. For those of you who think that's crazy, keep in mind it's a ton of work. Not only are you giving up multiple days to do the training, you have to develop the training. I never give the same training twice. Obviously, if I was to standardize a training that I was providing professionally on an ongoing basis, I probably would have to give the same training twice. But for the most part, the trainings I give are targeted, meaning that a particular audience has asked for them. And the other thing is you're always learning and everything's getting different and better. And so it's nice to upgrade, even if you're just changing out the pictures you use. If you find a better picture that represents a theoretical point you're trying to make, so it's a better diagram or a better measurement or whatever, you put them in. So you're constantly improving it. You're giving up time to do it. I usually find that there's somewhere between 2 and as much as 10 times the time it takes to do the delivery of the training to prepare to do the training. The 2 times would be like if it's largely pre-prepared and all you have to do is kind of go through it, make sure everything makes sense, pack yourself up, get ready to go and do it. 10 times would be, you're developing it from scratch. And it could be more than that. I did a train the trainer for continuous quality improvement a number of years ago. You guys could probably look it up. I think if you looked my name up and you looked up the continuous quality improvement, it would show up. It's on one of the Health and Human Services websites, I believe, or my old employers. And I helped to lead the development of that. The idea stemmed from me. Somebody had wanted it, and we were like, well, we can't do a one-on-one training, but we could do one for everybody. And in my head at the time, because I'd never really done that before, was, well, give me a month or 2, we'll knock it out, we'll get it done, it'll be easy. So a team of like 5+ people, and I'm talking PhDs and really good master's degree level researchers who were experts in this material, came together, and I think we spent the better part of a year plus working on this to get it done. So the time was immense. Now it is, I forget the number, 10 modules or something like that. It's like a large number of modules because it's a lot of material. If I take that same concept and apply it to stuff like this, like how to set up a room and optimize it, I think it would easily be the same thing and more. And there still would be benefit from coaching and in-person support and training. So I'd like to do all that, but I don't want to do it if I can't do it right. I just don't think it's worth it, and I don't think you would enjoy that either. I'd like to be able to make it so people like Steve-O here can actually go and do what we've just talked about on his own and feel empowered to do that. I want everybody to be able to do that. But like I said, it takes a lot to actually transfer all that information effectively and to make sure it's done right. The negative, if you don't do it right, is you make people knowledgeable just enough to be dangerous rather than just enough to get the job done. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want to be contributing to that. I want to do it right. So anyway, thank you. There's more coming. I got more videos coming, and I'll keep thinking about ways I can do this training and make it effective. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Keep on watching.